So I looked at Google search data, and I found that in the span of 5 years, searches for Filipino food reached around 500% increase in 5 years. When you looked at the millions upon millions of views on ube-related content on TikTok and Instagram, I mean, that said to me, this isn't just Filipinos.
All right, welcome to the Future Ancestors podcast. Alongside with my co-host Serrano, I am Jason Encite. We got a special guest here in the building today, so I'm just gonna do the whole introduction and let's see how it goes. So, when you think of edibles, most Filipinos would think you're talking about that old adobo in a Cool Whip container that your mom says, "Oh, that's still good." In terms of edibles, when it comes to marijuana, cannabis, and all in between, Filipinos wouldn't be considered part of that conversation. Our guest today is changing that. Lisa Angulo Reed, a Filipino hailing from West Virginia with a record of 2 decades plus in the advertising world, is using her skills on her independently owned company called Dear Flor, a brand of cannabis gummies that feature notable Filipino flavors like ube and mango, as well as flavors non-Filipinos not might be known about like Buko, Pandan, and calamansi. In an interesting time in the landscape of Filipinos where our cuisine is being recognized, at the same time not having the best caretakers to show them the right way, Lisa's taken upon herself to change that narrative. So let's learn more about Dear Flor and the mind behind it by welcome Lisa Angulo Reed to the Future Ancestors podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
That was an intro.
Yeah,
They're pretty epic. I'm like, oh, great. What's next? So, last time we saw each other was at Nurses Unseen,
Yep.
right? And we were talking about family. Like, it's so important to you having your own family. So, how did that influence you growing up, and your cultural background and stuff?
Oh, wow. I mean, when people think about West Virginia, they don't really think about Filipinos running around in West Virginia. But what people don't realize is that the largest Asian community in West Virginia is Filipino.
Wow.
A lot of it has to do with the exodus of medical professionals during the 60s and 70s. And so folks like my father that had already gotten, the license to practice in the Philippines, when they said, hey, they wanted to come, they're like, okay, you can come, but you've got to do your residency all over again. And,
Mm-hmm.
we'll take care of your visa, all of that stuff. And so that's kind of how my family ended up in the great state of West Virginia.
Yeah.
Um, growing up in West Virginia was kind of wild because there were maybe 3,000 people in the town that I grew up in. The next town over, there were about 40,000. I mean, I think it's declined since then. But it's really interesting because nothing kills racism faster than being on a surgery table. And like, what are you going to do? You're going to pick your doctor because you need a procedure done? That doesn't happen that way. And so the Filipino community was actually very much welcome where I grew up. And so being, Filipino was very much synonymous with being a doctor's kid or a nurse's kid. In my case, I was the kid of a doctor and a nurse, right? We had a lot of Filipino parties, a lot of, found families with all the titas. I also had family that I grew up with because my aunt, my father's sister, I went to high school and middle school with my cousins,
Oh,
right? When we moved, we spent maybe 3 years outside of West Virginia. We ended up moving to Yonkers for work, like my dad's work, not me. I was like 6, right? So for my father's work, but lived there from the time I was 3 till 6.5 was when we moved back. And when we moved back, there were 2 other Filipino kids in my class, and I don't know many Filipinos that grew up in the U.S. that went to school with that many Filipinos, unless you were in maybe California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, just didn't happen. So in many ways, I felt very much surrounded by the culture. Again, there was a Filipino party every freaking weekend. I'm just kind of like, hey, where are we going? And it was kind of cute because they wanted a place for all of the Filipinos to socialize. They all kind of chipped in, and property is not very expensive in West Virginia, but they all chipped in and all bought shares in a racquetball club, which, had racquetball courts and a space for them to just bring their food in. There was a pool there, and I just thought it was a thing we did every weekend. I thought my uncle owned it. It turned out like all the Filipinos owned a piece of it. It was just another story for like another day. But it was wild. It was wild. So
See, I love this
I love
because
that
it's like
too.
I've never heard even the fact like when I saw your bio and we were like West Virginia,
West Virginia, West
country
Virginia.
mama,
Yeah,
take me home. Uh, that's wild. Like even just having that as like a community. I was like, oh yeah, you're there, but having the whole community, that's pretty crazy. So I kind of have an idea of now with your medical
Yep.
background in your family, but how did that end up translating into the cannabis edible space for you?
It's funny. I mean, obviously I did not go into medicine despite my father's, best efforts. I lied and I told him I was going to go be a lawyer because I just, I was much better at English and history. And that's just where my interests lie. After college, so Ryan, my husband, who's the other founder of Dear Flor, like he and I went to college together. We used to be in political science class together. We've worked on so many things. We knew at some point in time we wanted to do something together. But, building a career is a long road. Like when I came to New York, didn't have an internship in advertising. I had really good internships, but back then to work in an advertising agency or in a publishing company, you had to have an internship there. I did not. So I went in as an admin. So I was a secretary in an ad agency up, back when they were still on Madison Avenue. So I was at Weinar. Somebody had the wherewithal to put me on a new business team, which is amazing. It's brutal, right? But as a secretary on that team, you do things like find people. You spend like half your lifetime just looking for people, throwing them into meeting rooms, ordering lunch, doing people's expenses, setting up meetings. But after 5 o'clock, if you wanted to stay and work on the pitch, you could stay and work on the pitch. I think I probably slept a total of 3 hours every night while I was working on new business because I was there. We were very aggressive about the clients that we were pitching.
Yeah.
I still think it was within the top three of most formative learning experiences that I've had in my career because I learned so much. You had access to the top executives, strategists, and creatives that were
Mhm.
developing crazy shit. I mean, we pitched the Olympics. We pitched
Mm.
like that. Oh my God, tears in the room. And let's see, it was around the time like Muhammad Ali, was still kind of he was still, I think, was this after? Yeah, it was after he had lit the Olympic torch, and there was still that image of him standing up there, with the torch, and he's kind of like shaky, right? Because he has Parkinson's, right? But yeah, God, that was like an incredible experience. But after that experience, I ended up working on a lot of consumer packaged goods or CPG clients. I think I built a lifetime working on things that you wash your hair with, wash your body with, wash your clothes with, feed your dogs, cookies that you eat. Like so that is my whole background. So learning how to sell and create advertising and strategies to help sell those types of products has just been something that I've been doing for like well over 20 years. Um, and so how does that land you into cannabis? Well, my husband was working in cannabis for 6, 7 years, right? He had spent a career like he did a tour of duty on Wall Street, right? He was one of the first Filipinos, if not the first Filipino, to be a portfolio manager at a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund.
That's awesome.
But you get tired of doing the same things every day. People don't realize how creative you can be if you are an analyst or somebody who's responsible for thinking about crazy trade ideas. And he's like, I'm just not feeling it. And so he decided to stop that, quit that, and started working with cannabis companies to try and build them. So this was as a lot of the states were starting to legalize. So he's pretty much worked in, like he worked to help raise money for the first woman's license in Massachusetts. He was working in California, Kentucky, like you name it. And eventually, I'm still working in the advertising agency. I'm going with him to these cannabis conferences. I start becoming the cannabis thought leader in my agency because there was interest there. Again, not legal, but the big CPG brands knew that it was something that they needed to examine. Um, and so when it came to looking at the insights, started digging into, how consumption behaviors were changing. We're like, okay, this could be interesting. And then the other thing that I was looking at was just trends for Filipinos and Filipino food and culture because I started noticing that, oh, wait, these people are starting to put Filipino sounding things on menus. Our ingredients started popping up. They weren't being credited with being Filipino, but I'm like, oh, wait, there's calamansi in here. Interesting. So and so has a lumpia like thing. So I looked at Google search data and I found that in the span of 5 years, searches for Filipino food reached around 500% increase in 5 years. When you looked at the millions upon millions of views on ube-related content on TikTok and Instagram, I mean, that said to me, this isn't just Filipinos looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we came to was, what if there was a way to reframe how we introduce our culture and our people to the world? And then from a cannabis standpoint, what if there was a way to think about products in this space? Could cannabis become an ambassador for Filipino culture? And that was kind of the catalyst for why we started Dear Flor. It's a little bit of a long-winded story, but it's kind of how journeys are always long, right? So,
Yeah. So what's the meaning of Dear Flor? How did you come up with the name?
right. So when we were thinking about names for our company, one thing that kept coming back to me, right? Like, again, I am a child of the 80s, right? Phone calls were really expensive. They would call us, collect if they wanted to communicate, from home to here. But my mom always had that huge pile of letters in her dresser drawer to her sister, my aunt. Her name was Flor de Lisa.
Mm.
And so, because, they like to name their women after flowers. So there's a Floribel, there's Marie Flores. Well,
Yeah.
this one is Flor de Lisa. She was my auntie Floring. And so we wanted to come up with a name that had that same level of invitation and like welcome, because like when you think about, what do you write a letter? You have questions, you want to share what's going on, or maybe you just want to know, like, why is my daughter like not talking to me? Is this normal? Right? So pre-internet. And so we came up with Dear Flor because we wanted something that if you're Filipino, you're like, oh, okay, I think I see something there. That is this
Yeah.
Filipino?
Mhm.
But if you're not Filipino, it should feel familiar. Like maybe you don't know it, but it shouldn't feel unfamiliar
Yeah.
to you, and it shouldn't
should resonate,
feel unapproachable. So yeah, that's how we got to Dear Flor.
I love that.
It's got like big ate energy.
I love it.
So
So what's the response have been in the whole edible industry of like a Filipino brand, even just being in that space?
yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, when we were working through the concept and developing the product and starting to put together, plans, like when we start talking to people are like, but why cannabis?
Hmm.
Right? Do you have to do this in cannabis? And we're like, well, yeah, that's kind of the point. So again, reframe how people think about us, find new ways to introduce us to, others. Some people were just like, oh, it feels so niche. How are you going to scale that? Because who's really going to be interested in Filipino food? But again, we saw the data,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And everybody has a Filipino friend.
Yes.
In fact, I was probably a lot of people's first Filipino friend growing up.
Same.
And so we're just like, yeah, I hear you, but we're going to keep it Filipino. So cut to October 2023. So when we first launched the company, we launched in the licensed California market. So we were in dispensaries. We were in MedMen, rest in peace. You still owe me money. And it's funny, we had to do a lot of store visits there to kind of introduce our product and explain the flavors to people. We also did a lot of sampling, right? Just so people could taste before they bought.
Yeah.
The reception I thought was pretty good because we couldn't keep it on shelves. And the stores that we were not in Asian neighborhoods, much less Filipino neighborhoods. We were in Cow Hollow in San Francisco, which is like not far from Nancy Pelosi lives. Median age there is women, late 20s, early 30s, fairly high income because they probably work at a big tech company. It's very white, right? We were also in Beverly Hills. And we were in Abbot Kinney. Again, not very Asian neighborhoods. I think you could probably count on one hand the number of Filipino brands that you might find in any of those three spaces.
What flavors were they responding to the most? Because I'm just kind of like, yeah, mango is something that's generally speaking people would recognize.
Yeah.
But how are these? How would the white folk
Yeah.
getting accustomed to our flavor palette?
So I think what's interesting is you have to look at the category. right? In the edibles category, sleep is by far and away the market leader, right? People do not want to fuck with their sleep, right? If they find something that works, they're going to stick with it.
Mm.
And so we actually ended up making ube boba. Well, at the time it was just ube, right? Ube was our sleep variant, right? And that one could not keep it on the shelves. I think it outsold everything 2-1 across all 3 stores, which is wild.
That's awesome.
When you think about, mango, actually, it's funny. Until people tasted the mango gummy, people were like, I've had a mango. So people were totally sleeping on the mango. We had to tell them, like, look, I know you've had a mango gummy, but you've not had our mango gummy, which tastes like Filipino dried
It
mangoes.
really does.
And so it's like, and so once they tried it, they're like, okay, I get it, done. Calamansi, a lot of people like their citruses. The dark horse was Buko Pandan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see
And Buko Pandan was funny. We had a lot of people telling us, like, don't you think you should anglicize the names? Right? Ube, they're like, okay, I can accept ube. Calamansi, because it was making the rounds with, people in the like bar space. Bartenders like, we know it. And it was making the rounds in cocktails. So like we can get past it. But Buko Pandan is a little strange. If you're Asian, like specifically East Asian, you're familiar with Pandan, but maybe not Buko,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? We chose not to anglicize the name because we have a very simple mission, and it's to share Filipino culture with the world one flavor at a time. And part of sharing your culture is normalizing the names that we have for our foods and our ingredients. And so we said, no, we're going to have to educate people on what buko pandan is anyway. So, like, if I tell you it's young coconut and pandan, people are like, okay, I get the coconut, but I'm like, but it's not like regular coconut.
Mhm.
It's young coconut. It is the green coconut you see on the tree. When you crack it open, it's got the freshness of the coconut water. It's that white gelatinous young coconut on the inside. And so it sounds a little romantic if you haven't heard it
Mhm.
before. And so people are like, okay, I want to try that. And then when they tried it, they were like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
And there's 2 responses that people typically have to that. And it's fascinating to me. The folks that truly love the Buko Pandan are Filipinos that have been born or grew up in the US, and non-Filipinos respond extremely well to this flavor profile because it's probably the most, let's say, tropical. I hate calling things tropical, but it's like it's the one that feels like a vacation because of the coconut,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so yeah, like that one, it's wild. If ube is our best seller, the other 3 aren't that far behind now.
That's
I'm glad to
awesome.
hear that.
Yeah.
And
I
before you say anything,
yeah.
if you can learn how to say acai, buko pandan is not that the
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
it's so easy
It's
to
not
say.
that hard.
So I'm like, all right. I had to get on
That's
my
fine.
soapbox on that because I'm like, I'm glad you didn't change the name.
Yeah,
That's
me too.
basically
I
what I'm
love that
getting
you
at.
still. I love the route that you guys went as far as trying to normalize like our names and our flavors and
Yeah.
stuff. That's awesome. So I actually had the mango, which
Uh-huh.
is absolutely amazing. How do you like stay? How do you make sure that everything is made to taste the way that it does? Like it tastes like our mangoes. Like
Right. So for the first wave of development of these 4 like gummies, we spent 8 months in R&D. A lot of it was just getting the flavors right because these flavors, even the mango, they don't exist anywhere.
yeah.
And so we worked with, a flavor house to develop these. We gave them references to say, okay, this is kind of what we're going for. We get it. It's a vegan gummy. It's not going to be 1 for 1. Like there is no evaporated milk in the book of Pandan, like our dessert. But we wanted to make sure that we were hitting the notes that characterize these flavors and these ingredients. So um, that took some time. And for us, again, if the gummy is the ambassador to our culture, you can't say that. You can't make these bold
Yeah.
claims and have a shitty tasting
Yeah. No.
product. You can't do it. Sorry, I cursed a lot. I'm
No.
going to
That's
apologize
fine.
now.
Yeah. No.
So, yeah, so that's what we
It
did.
was amazing. That one tastes so good. I had it before I go to bed sometimes.
And you know what, Filipino people, they're all about having it being like authentic.
Right.
If you don't come correct with that, then you're already lost. So you like hitting the market. I haven't tried it. I'm gonna have to do it try it myself, and then
Oh, I'd love
I'm
to
gonna
hear what you
join
think of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. We'll do like a little taste test. I love that. 'Cause, you know, don't get me started on anything food. I'll just go crazy. So let's get into the whole part of the business thing, because that interesting part that you mentioned earlier is you work with your husband.
Yeah.
So how is that? Because I don't think I could ever work with my wife. I'm just gonna be straight up honest. That would be very difficult. So how is that work-life balance of putting a business like this together and at the same time trying not to kill each other?
I think what's really important is one, I mean, I'm obviously working with a partner that I trust. I mean, I've carried his children. We are raising two kids together. So, I mean, if I don't trust him, there's problems. And I think we have very complementary skill sets. If I approach things from, a marketing end, right? Again, he is the cannabis expert in our house because he lived, through it. That became really helpful, especially, when it came time to look at things like the cost of manufacturing the product. He had a stake in a packaging company, so understanding like what does it cost to actually get proper packaging for this? Like these are important things. Like there's a lot of minutia that goes into it. Like the making of the product is the fun part. I would say I probably have the most fun pieces of this business because he's like sweating the details when it comes to like how much is this going to cost to make, going through all of that, making sure that we're able to keep the lights on. Like there's a lot of operational and financial know-how that needs to be there in order for us to run a sustainable, like forget like successful. Yes, obviously we don't want to have a failing business, but like in order to, you can have a success, but is it going to be like a one-shot deal? Or is this something that's going to sustain over time? And so I think that piece is really, really important. The fact that, again, we are raising kids with each other, so I can tell him anything and he can tell me anything. He's just like, I think this is a bad idea. Don't do it. Like, or we need you to like rethink. So we can have very open and honest conversations
That's,
with each other.
does ego ever get in the way?
Not really,
That's awesome.
because again, like we have one goal. Like the reason why we're doing this is it's obviously, to raise the visibility of Filipinos, but
Yeah.
like it really is much closer to home.
Yeah.
We're doing this for, like, it sounds like we're doing this for the children. Like we are doing this for our children's
Yeah.
future,
Yeah.
right? The reality is there aren't like, if you think about companies out there, like how many Filipino led companies are there that they've built from the ground up? There aren't many. It's not an easy road. And even if you make it, right, and you're able to, you're resilient enough to make it through, corporate America, will they let you lead?
Mm.
So at a certain point in time, again, I'm freaking old. Like I've been around for a while. Like, and so, after, oh God, like let's just say plus 20 some years, like working in corporate spaces and places, like I knew that like would not be the CEO of any of the companies that I worked at.
Yeah.
Right. So, where was I going with this? I guess the important thing is, no, it's not about ego. It's about it's about our mission. It's about creating something that we're building, for our kids. And, ultimately, if it inspires others to do the same, because I think you have to be able to see it
Yeah.
to know that it's possible.
Yeah.
I think that is really, really important for our community.
I love that. Now you run two businesses, the household and Dear Flor. How do you balance both?
Oh, goodness. It's a good question because I don't know that I'm the most balanced person. I'll be the first person to, laugh. I think somebody was asking me, if we were to do gummies for each of the different titas, like which tita would you be? I'm like totally the tita with like no chill because there's always like something going on. That probably makes me a calamansi. No, that actually means that I use the ube like 3 to 4 times so I can like actually put myself to sleep. But I think things get done. I mean, I think one of the challenging pieces is that both Brian and I are in startup mode.
Mhm.
And when you're in startup mode, we do everything from, we have the discussions with the manufacturer, we're ordering the packaging, we're filling the printer at home. Like when
Yeah.
we go to events, like we are literally putting stickers on little envelopes and filling the bags ourselves because that is what you have to do to run
Yeah.
this business. And so things get done. There's always room for better,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to home things. And there are days like today, after we do this, I'm going to run home, take care of a few things, pick up my daughter, take her to violin. You just have to make these trade-offs. That's just life.
Yeah.
That's
I
just
can
life.
I resonate with that.
Yeah.
It's hit or
No,
miss.
I hate it when people are like, "Oh, everything gets done." You probably have like
No.
50 people helping you
If it does, yeah.
if
does,
it's running smoothly, right? But
yeah.
like again, startup.
it's rough.
And I don't know, like my parents were very hands-on, very involved. Like we still do dinner every night with our kids. Like this is something that I grew up with.
That's
I
amazing.
don't think that's something that's ever going to change. My poor kids have to listen to us talk about work during dinner time. In the same regard, they're learning a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. I feel like they learn by action of
Yeah.
what you do, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly. And that's what we do here, like we do a podcast and we go back to our family. So
Yeah.
obviously it's something that is very close to home for us.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's important.
But speaking of kids, I think with this whole conversation of cannabis, obviously when having a family, you got to also consider like, oh, wait, I work in a cannabis business, but I have children. And so how does that translate to like have those kind of conversations? Because I know especially with people who have families, they kind of steer clear away from that kind of space of
Yeah.
either marijuana, cannabis, or anything in that kind of field. So how do you talk to them about what you do, especially when other voices might be saying something else?
We're very transparent with them. Again, when Brian started out working in the cannabis space, we're like, yeah, daddy's working with cannabis companies. Daddy has a packaging company, for cannabis products. And so my son said to another friend, pretty innocuously, he's like 14 now. He was maybe 11 at the time. So kids ask, like, what do your parents do? He's like, well, my mom works in advertising. My dad works in cannabis. And so the kid was like, oh, is your dad a dealer? And so that was the signal that we had to explain everything very open, like, no, daddy's not a dealer. This is what he does, right? When he's doing this is what it is. And so, because it's not fair to them, right, to have to deal with any stigmas because we didn't explain it to them,
yeah.
right? And I think with this type of product, I think, if people do ask us what we do and like, their friends' parents are going to ask us what it is. I'm like, well, we make candy for adults. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, we make cannabis edibles. And so it's usually met with curiosity. There's always people who are going to be like, really? And it's not like my kids have lost friendships over this. And our kids, they have a knack for picking some pretty good friends. And so they know what we're doing. I mean, as far as like, again, when we're in R&D, there's a lot of competitive product around the house, right? We also are testing our own product. There's a rule in our house. If you see candy, I mean, we lock everything up, but on the off chance, because we're human, say there's a gummy on a table. It could be a non-medicated sample. It could be a hot sample. They know that they're not allowed to touch any candy unless we give it to them in the house. And so they've actually been really, really good about that. I think it did kill them that they couldn't taste it because they were hearing the flavors. And so like when the non-medicated samples came in, I'm like, okay, here you go. What do you want to taste? And so they had like a field day and they're like, oh, finally. And they're like, can I get more of this thing? And they will ask me from time to time, can I get, a Buko Pandan? Or can I get a mango? And I'm like, okay. And then I'll pull out the samples that we use for like events that are non-medicated. I'm like, here, you go and you can try this. The other thing too, though, is when we are at events, and we have non-medicated samples out, people's kids ask us for the samples all the time. We actually will not give that to the kids.
Yeah.
I usually have other candy out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't give you this, but I have all these other things.
Yeah.
What would you like? Because we make candy for adults. Kids are not supposed to know that these taste really good. And they do taste really good. And so we try and avoid it. And so that's just us being cautious. And also, like, we're also Filipinos working in this space. We are actually not allowed to fail.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is from testing protocols to how we show up. If we are in any way irresponsible, we go from being the example to like the cautionary tale. And we will get flamed for it. So again, we are super, super careful with everything that we do.
Wow, I appreciate how how serious you take this. Like it's not just for you guys; it is for the community.
We don't have
You know
a
that-
choice.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's not everyone takes accountability for themselves like that. So I think that's very admirable that you guys are doing that and setting that because there's I mean, I'm pretty sure someone else is going to try to come out with flavors or something with Filipino
Yep.
as well. So the fact that you're leading in this by exposing the flavors, but by also leading by example as far as take it seriously because it's not just you, it's like for the community,
Yeah.
you know? So women in the cannabis space are not well represented. What advice do you have for a woman trying to get into this space?
Oh wow. Know what you're getting yourself into. It's not an easy space. Um, it's super important to have good partners. I was very blessed to, have my husband be my partner, but I know that's not the case for most people entering this industry. Um, there is just, I would say, like, this is probably the most challenging industry that I've ever worked in for a whole host of reasons, right? At a personal level, this is our family business.
Yeah.
Secondly, it's a Filipino business. We just spoke about like the
Mhm.
challenges of making sure that you lead a business with integrity and accountability. The third thing is very practically speaking, it is a capital intensive business. So knowing where your capital is coming from, if it's not your own, is very, very important because there are a lot of bad actors in the space that want to take advantage and gouge you. And then even if you've cleared that boss level, can you get your product to market?
Mhm.
Um, if you are operating in the licensed cannabis space, and it's interesting because I feel like I've got a perspective in both worlds now from, working in California to running an online piece of business. Um, to get a product to market is not easy because you are working with licensed manufacturers who are getting the product from licensed, hopefully good, suppliers of either, the cannabis, right, or the oils that are made from the cannabis. You cannot just drive up and pick up your product from the manufacturer. You have to go through a licensed distributor. They're the ones who have got to schlep it. It's like the liquor model. You've got to get it
Mm.
from there to the stores.
Yeah.
The stores need to be licensed as well by the state. And then if you've cleared that hurdle, is the retailer paying you? Because if the retailer isn't paying you, that means your distributor is not getting paid. And since I'm not touching it, I can't get paid directly by anyone. So if my distributor's not getting paid, I'm not getting paid. I still have to pay my manufacturer. The manufacturer still needs to pay whoever is supplying the raw materials to them. So what you have in places like California, and I think it's possibly a cautionary tale for other licensed cannabis like states. You do have a legacy of non-payment. It's a pretty vicious cycle that repeats. And so you think about net 30 terms become net 60, net 90, net 120, sometimes net never.
What?
Mm.
So,
Ooh.
yeah. So I think know what you're getting into, know your partners, know your suppliers. You have to vet everyone. But this is also why, like, sometimes these places you can take, I mean, obviously, it's great if you're already a bad actor and you're inclined to like cut corners, then, good for you. This market might be made for you in some respect. All right. But it also makes a lot of really good people do bad things because they're underwater,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, that is just not a safe space to be. For women in this space, it's also a very lonely space because who do you commiserate with?
Mm.
People aren't always as forthcoming or open to help. And honestly, if they are, should you trust them?
Mm.
So that's what I would say for women entering the space. So sorry, that's a lot.
No, I
Yeah, no, it's like a deep breath moment. Because the funny thing is, like, my follow-up question was gonna ask about your hurdles, and you just definitely like addressed those. So, what was a moment where you had places of difficulty that you overcame and got you to where you are right now?
Oh God, which one? It's
Mhm.
like it's Tuesday. Like pick a thing. Um, gosh, challenges that got us to where we are now. Trying to think. There's so many.
Yeah.
There are
Well, speak
so
about the
many.
wins then, because like you did speak about
Yeah, let's
the,
go
the
win.
difficulty. Let's talk about win. I want
Yeah,
to get
let's
some
go wins.
positivity.
We like flowers.
So I think like as far as wins go, seeing our product accepted by the Filipino community is huge. I like not to speak for Brian, but I'm going to speak for Brian. He's half Filipino, right? And he grew up in spaces that were not, his upbringing was very different from mine because like there were very like little to no Filipinos where he grew up.
Mm.
He didn't grow up as entrenched with a culture until he got to college because, Filipinos find you and they kind of like found him. So for him, being able to work on a business that is all about his Filipino heritage. For him, it's kind of reclaiming that piece of his identity that was missing and also that education and that richness, right? There are so many things that we don't know about our history.
Yeah.
And I think people are only recognizing that there is a world of Filipinos that isn't just Tagalog or Ilocano or Visayan, right? Down to the provincial nuances that exist in our cuisine. I mean, there is so much richness there. So for him, that is a huge win. And for me, letting him, experience this or seeing him experience this and being like, front row seat to that, like that is amazing. I think the other thing too is like I just spoke at the consulate. I brought my kids there because they had a panel on like Filipinos that work in advertising and marketing. And so for them to actually see this in motion, I don't know if they appreciate it yet. They may not appreciate it for another 5 to 10 years, but I know they will.
Yeah.
I know they will eventually. So I think the reward on that end is coming,
Yeah.
right? I think it'll bear fruit. So I think those are the two big wins. Not the big win. This is me being petty. Like,
We welcome that too.
They call me Tom sometimes. So
Yeah.
hey, I'm all for it.
no, I'm being facetious, but I think when we made the call to focus on D2C, right? Again, like if we're going to share our culture with the world, how do we do it? How do we reach as many people as possible faster? So I think moving out of the licensed cannabis market into the federally legal hemp cannabis space, right? We've sold in well over 40 states. Like we've had buyers from across 40 states. Like this is just a little over our first quarter doing this online. There is so much room to grow. That for me is exciting. God, selling up for the holidays, like that is a win. Like our products sold out, right before Christmas. And don't get me wrong, we were definitely shitting in our pants. But like when we went to pre-orders, like just the response from our community, like that is like an amazing validation. So yeah, I think those are the big ones.
I love that. Yeah, I bought my friend because her birthday is around, so I bought some of the flavors. Some of them were sold out. I was like, well, I'm like, good for you. Sucks for me because I wanted to give her some more. But she loved the stuff that I gave her a mango and ube.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. So speaking of, room for growth, like where do you see Dear Flor going in the coming years? Do you see yourselves expanding into different products? Because now, like, there's apparently like THC drinks and
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. Is that something that you guys would be into?
I don't know yet. I
Expanding
think
to?
for the moment, I like making candy for grown-ups.
I actually love that, by the way. Like as far as marketing too, candy for adults is awesome.
Yeah, and so I'm enjoying this. I think there's always more flavors. We are actually working on a new flavor, so we are in R&D mode right
Nice.
now, and so
Share that.
not yet, not yet. But
Can't
like,
wait.
so hopefully we'll be launching that, sometime like later this half.
Oh, nice.
So working on that, like that's exciting. Yeah, I think for now we're going to stick to candy because I think again we've just scratched the surface of this country,
Yeah.
right? We just want to get to more people
I love
and
that.
places.
Love.
So outside of that, do you have any maybe dream collaborations that you might want to involve Dear Floor with, or anybody that you feel like would be a great fit to be working with?
I really love what we're doing with artists, and DJs at this point. That I appreciate because I think our music is everywhere, our art is everywhere, and part of what we want to do is, help just, I hate saying the word uplift because it sounds so freaking pompous, but it is about propelling the community forward, right? So We worked with Cassiel, like she was our first artist in residence, because we have on our product detail pages, like our website is media, right? And if it can give people more visibility, right? So her art for each of our ingredients, if you go to the ube, she's got a beautiful, dreamy looking ube like illustration that she's done. She did a beautiful one for the Buko Pandan. You know, all of them are like amazing. And so like that I love doing. I think when we expand, I want to expand our collaborations with comedians as well as comic book partners and creators. Like that, there's a world of storytelling there. And so that's kind of like the next arena. So no specific names in mind,
Yeah.
but it's just how do
So
we
we want to
do
put
this?
that out there in the universe. So, you know,
Yes.
if there's anybody out there listening that would be interested in that kind of space,
They
this
should
is
DM me. They
yeah,
should totally
exactly.
DM me because that's something that we're very open to doing.
I
That's
love
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
So, last question: as a future ancestor, where do you see your legacy moving forward?
Phew. It's a multi-layered question.
Mm.
Because I feel like our collective legacy as a family is tied to Dear Flor's
Mm-hmm.
success. Because if we are successful, we will have introduced our flavors and honestly reclaimed the identity of ube, like for Filipinos,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, that's not the end. Like that's not what I want to be known for. That's not what I want to be known for.
But that is a legacy as far as
Mhm.
company goes.
Contributing, yeah, to the ownership of our cultural flavors, I think is important. I think also, gosh, like I guess let's answer this in bits and pieces, right? At a family level, right? Let's start micro and then we'll go macro. Um, Again, our kids are listening to us talk about our business. They're asking questions about, you know, how are your sales in states? Like my 14-year-old's very precocious. And he's like, how are you doing? And I'm just like, work for you? I guess I kind of work for you. And so, you know, seeing them know that it's possible, honestly, letting people know that it's possible to bring your whole identity to your business is doable. It's achievable. I think that is huge.
That's
It's
huge.
really, really important to us. I think the other thing too, you know, I guess from children to business, gosh, you know, we're an independent brand. Um, I'm actually going to circle back to a challenge that we didn't discuss, but like the folks that have control of the edibles market, right? They're much larger players with much deeper pockets.
Mm.
And if you're operating, this is something, again, if you're thinking about going into cannabis that you need to be aware of, it is very hard for independent brands to thrive in this space because they determined who makes it into which store and, you know, how long you get to stay on shelf and what your payout is going to be. I want to be a contender. If we are successful, Dear Flor will make it up there and be within, let's say, the top 3 brands that people are buying, you know, when they think about edibles. Um, and I do want to be not a case study, but a real example for, again, identity at this, especially at this time and place,
Yeah.
right? Um, our identity is very much a part of our business, and there's no policy that's going to change that. I would have to change, like we would have to change our business
Yeah.
altogether. So I think those are the things that we think about. So
I love that.
All right. So before we end, is there anything else that you would like to maybe any upcoming business, any where they can find you, and maybe any other information about Dear Flor that you want to share with everybody?
well, like we've talked about the new flavor. I guess if people are looking for Dear Flor, it's kind of funny. I get a lot of DMs like, are you going to be at such and such dispensary? And the answer is no. So the only place where people can find Dear Flor is at dearflor.com.
Okay.
I personally answer every DM at Love Dear Flor on Instagram. So if you have any questions about the products or just want to say hi or tell us that you had a great experience using our product, DM me because honestly, like those are, with all the challenges, those are the things that totally make my
Worth
day.
it,
Yeah, you have no idea. Like I'll be having the worst day ever and I'll get a DM or like a picture like, I got my product. This is amazing. Like that keep them coming.
Yeah,
That makes me happy.
I love that.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So you guys know how to support her.
Hmm.
Send her some DMs, show her some love, keep her going, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Okay, so here's a portion of our episode where we have our rapid fire
Oh boy.
segment. So first thing that comes to mind, and you just let us know what you think. Well, I'll let Kat start.
Sure. Okay, so best piece of advice you've ever received.
Never leave your seat at the table. And this is like not food, right? As much as Filipino could relate to food. I mean that could be true,
Yeah.
right? Too. But like when you're in a meeting environment, if you have a seat at the table, do not give it up. Especially when you're in those like meetings, because and if you're asked to give it up, don't give it up without a fight, right? Because there's a reason why you're there. If you're being asked to give it up, ask why.
I
Ask
love
why.
that.
Like
That's
that.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Which one of your Dear Flor flavors is your favorite?
People always ask me this. This is like asking me which my favorite child is.
Do you have one? I've heard
I
that
don't
parents
have-
always have one.
No, I don't have a favorite child.
I don't either.
No, mine changes it all the time.
Really?
Like it's all of them, and it's because it's on
Different.
different situations, different days. So I love them all equally, but yeah, it changes.
Depends on the day.
I
You
think
can use that if you like.
I mean, while I use the ube boba the most often, everybody loves their problem child, right? And so the one, like, guess which one was the toughest to craft out of these four? I'm going to throw a question back at you.
This one.
The mango.
The mango was the toughest
Yeah.
one
What?
because a lot of people have different ideas of what mango tastes like.
Okay.
And so when you're tasting them, sometimes it's too tart or it doesn't taste like a Filipino mango. And we wanted something very specific. Mango took the longest to create. So that might be my favorite one because it was the most challenging.
Yeah.
So-
Labor of love.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, it's my turn. So name a song that gets you through the day.
It gets me through the day. Oh gosh. Not necessarily through the day, but if I had like a hype song, like my walkout song is probably Underdog.
Oh.
So, you know that song?
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not
Is,
familiar.
is that with
It's
Alicia
like
Keys?
no, that's like Sly and the Family Stone.
Oh.
Okay.
So
Right,
that
you
one
know,
is like
I'm dating myself. I'm thinking of the underdog, like the cartoon.
no. Oh God, no.
And I looked at myself, so I was like, wait a minute. All right. Okay. Now you know.
I'm pretty sure it's
Okay.
Sly. I should know this off the top of my head. You caught me
I'm
offside.
gonna have to play.
No. Like no, but it's great because it's got the horns in there and it's got like a little bit of like na like in the horns, and it opens up with like that. It's like deep horns, and again, if I had a walkout song, it might be that one.
I love that. We have to play it before.
It's a great song.
I'm gonna have my music card revoked from speaking of the DJ homies because I didn't recognize one. Okay. Who was your Filipino or Filipina hero growing up?
Ooh, gosh, my Filipino hero growing up. Um, might have been my Lola
Hmm.
on my dad's side. Like I never met my mother's parents, so it's kind of unfair, right? But I think she was in the Philippines. Probably met her less than 5 times. No, that's not true. Because my God, like there goes my mind. She actually before she moved to West Virginia, because she lived there for like a little bit. Probably met her a handful of times. And when she did, what I loved is, God, she was a tough, she was just a tough lady, right? She was a former school principal, could not mess with her at all. But what I loved is she told the most amazing Filipino ghost stories. And so whenever she would come in, we would have a slumber party and she would come in and tell us like the stories of the aswang and like the duende and like scare us shitless. We wouldn't sleep. But like,
And I'm like, I love that because I didn't have any stories told to me when I was younger, so I didn't know anything about like our mythology or anything.
oh my God, no, she told the best stories and she would give me like, cause she knew that I loved it. And I asked her to send me like mythology books or like folktale books. I still have the books. So she would do that. And then when somebody was coming back, throw it in the suitcase. One of them is like this thick. It's a big book, but it's a great book.
That's awesome. What's Lola's name?
Lola Pelang. So Rafaela.
Oh, saying hello.
Oh, sure. To her in heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. So you live in New York. Suggest a place we should check out. Actually, it's Valentine's Day coming up,
Oh,
right? So what is if you could suggest a place that you would go with your husband for Valentine's Day, like where would you celebrate? What's a romantic spot?
See, we're not very romantic people. Like,
Right.
so this would
But-
be like, honestly, karaoke and
Oh,
like open room, ideally. And like the more of
You
a
don't like the private?
I hate
karaoke?
private
Oh,
room
wow.
karaoke. And it's not about being good singers. I just love watching
people.
the scene unfold because um we go to a karaoke dive bar down in the Lower East Side. So we go to Boho, right? And they literally have a box. It's like it's about as wide as this chair that you can stand on to sing on. And you have a mix of like people who sound like they're from off Broadway and just really drunk people. And then people in the middle like us. And that for me is just a riot because it's just ridiculous. So yeah, that would be like an
I
ideal
love that.
thing. I'm not going to name any Filipino restaurants because somebody will come at me. I don't want to insult anyone. So karaoke for sure.
I love that. That's great. Carrie. And you said boho.
Yeah.
That's not the French restaurant, right?
No, they have
It's
like
a
a couple of
bohos?
bohos. Like
Okay,
they've got
okay.
one in the West Village, but the one on the Lower East Side
That's
on
your
Orchard is just ridiculous. It's
Okay.
just come as you are.
All right.
So
All right, last one for our rapid fire section. What's a quote that keeps you motivated?
so growing up, again, this is West Virginia. My parents put me in the Catholic girls' school there. There were only like 11 people in my graduating class. But one thing that sticks out in my mind was the school motto, if you will. And it was a quote from St. Francis de Sales, and it's be who you are and be that well.
Hmm.
I think that's honestly how I think about like my kids and their schools that we put them into. So like that is probably the single quote that sticks out in my head. It's followed by a stupid Latin pun, which is semper ube, sub ubi, which is always wear underwear. So I think the first one's a little better.
I respect both.
The second one's good too.
Yeah.
Bad pun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really
Especially-
bad Latin pun.
Yeah, especially if you're in New York and you're on the subway.
Yeah.
So then I will never sit down.
Okay, so one more game. We have this game called Buds or Duds. And basically, we're going to say a strain, and you have to say if it's true or false.
Okay.
So,
First one, Girl Scout cookies.
So wait, this is if it's a strain of bud? Or...
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, God, I'm the worst person to answer this. Buds?
yeah.
Well, I know they have do-si-dos. So, okay. Girl Scout cookies, I'm
Okay,
guessing.
Awesome. So, purple haze.
That's definitely a bud.
Yeah.
Okay. Alien apple candy.
Dud.
Okay, so you're better at this than you thought. So, Durban poison.
Oh, that's a bud.
Oh, see, without a doubt. Cloudberry dream.
Isn't that an edible name? Oh, you can't say. I want to say, I feel like it's not a bud, but I want to say somebody has a cloudberry edible. So, dud and a half. Do I get partial credit?
We'll
No, she did.
split the, we'll split.
No, you
So
got
what
that
was
right
it? Was
too.
it a bud or a dud?
It's a dud.
It's a dud. But
Yeah.
there is somebody has a cloudberry
Not
edible.
sure with the one on the edible.
Okay, so blue dream.
Blue dream. I'm going to guess bud.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, next one, Master Kush.
It feels like it should be a bud, but it might be a dud. I'm going to go with dud.
No.
No.
It's a bud?
Yeah, it's a bud.
Okay.
Pink pineapple surprise.
Pink pineapple surprise. It sounds like a strawberry shortcake doll. Pink pineapple surprise. It's a dud.
Yeah.
Yep. Redwood Reef.
It's a bud.
No.
It's a dud.
Mhm.
Damn it.
And then last one.
White widow.
Oh, that's definitely a bud.
Yeah.
No,
You did great.
because like White Widow, I think during the late 90s, 2000s was a fairly prolific strain in Appalachia.
Oh.
Yeah.
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 I never had it. I knew of it. I'm not gonna get into that. Yeah, I'm not gonna go to the
Oh
archive.
my God. See, like,
and why I know.
this is like such like a tricksy thing because I don't smoke flower anymore. And so I'm just kind of like, I think I remember this. No, but the
No, you
white
did
widow for
great.
sure.
You did great. You knew the ones that I thought you weren't going to get, you got right. I was like, okay. I didn't know any of these. I had to research. I was like, oh, these are weird names. They're interesting names. And that's it.
Yes.
Yay! Okay.
That's it.